Hey everyone, welcome back to some new Malicious Compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Parking Ticket. About 10 or so years ago, I went to a concert an hour away from Indianapolis. I decided to make a day of going to several museums and spots around the city. Each time I paid for parking in a garage for 2 hours, then went to meander around the area. Finally, I parked close to the venue and paid for parking until the time it was free. In total, I probably paid $40 to $50 for parking throughout the day. I enjoyed the concert, but came back to a parking ticket on my car. I thought, this is odd, but I was tired and chalked it up to a mistake. But I still decided to take photos of my parking spot. Both spots on either side were taken, and all the signage. Then I headed home for the evening, figuring I would sort it out in the morning. The next morning I reviewed the ticket, the photo of my spot and my parking receipt. The ticket did not line up to the spot my car was located in, and my receipt showed that I had valid parking at the time of the ticket. So I submitted an appeal, thinking this would be easy. It's obvious that a mistake was made. The appeal was denied. The ticket was for the spot that was not paid for. Ergo, it stood. I called the office and the lady said they did not make a mistake, as my receipt showed that I paid for spot X-1 and the ticket was for spot X. I asked about the photo proof that my car was in spot X-1. She said, well, you could have moved the car. The parking receipt included my license plate number and everything. I noted that there were cars and spots on either side of me and that the entire street was full because of the concert. Honestly, I don't think they bothered to look at the photo. Even if that had not been the case, I had proved that the license plate had a paid parking spot. But no matter what, no dice. I was feeling petty over this $25 parking ticket at this point. I called Visa and asked if I could retract the amount I paid for the time that I parked, since it didn't count. I submitted all the evidence and documentation to Visa. They agreed that if my parking receipt and transaction number weren't proof that I had paid for parking, then clearly I had paid for a service I did not receive. They extended my initial request of cancelling the one transaction to include all the parking spots I had paid for through the system that day, valued at more than the parking ticket. Then they filed a formal complaint on my behalf, with a letter explaining why they were refunding me. I would not have been nearly as satisfied if I had not spent the entire day playing tourist in the city and racking up a large parking bill, all with the same vendor. The next story is called Flag Compliance. My buddy works in retail. A lady came up to him yesterday and asked to speak with the manager. She was holding onto an American flag they had for sale. The store had a half a dozen or so. A manager comes up. Lady starts being rude about how the flag was laid out improperly and how disrespectful it is to our country, yada yada, saying the store shouldn't be selling them if they can't be displayed properly. Also wants to know the price because the tag had been ripped off. The manager says, just a moment, and goes to speak with the boss manager. The boss manager promptly returns to the lady and tells her, I'm very sorry for the inconvenience today. Unfortunately, sometimes the guests will come in and mess around with or move our product, and that's probably why you found this flag in the state you did. That being said, you are absolutely correct that we should not be selling this particular item if we cannot maintain its integrity while in the store. I'll be pulling all of the flags off of the floor immediately. Well, it's not that No, you were right and the decision is final. And with that he goes and rounds up all the flags. My buddy said they are just going to put them back out in a few days though. The third story is called Time Metrics. About 20 years ago, I worked in a call center at a budding payment processing company. The main performance metric was the time service factor, which required answering 80% of calls within 20 seconds. Due to a constant queue of calls, achieving this goal was impossible. Customers were unhappy, management was unhappy. The stage was set. Enter tech support. I was hired fresh out of high school to be the call center's sole tech support and handle customer-facing application migrations. In retrospect, they basically brought me on as a project manager and systems consultant, but I didn't know any better. Unfortunately, our telephony system did not direct callers based on specialization. So when customers called in specifically for tech support, there was a 1 in 15 chance of getting the lone tech support agent. Instead of investing in more tech support staff and overhauling the phone menu, management decided the best system was to have representatives physically line up at my desk. It was frustrating and extremely overwhelming to balance my migration projects and the queue of callers that were waiting for me. So I adapted by remaining in not ready as much as possible. Not ready means your line will only ring for direct calls, but only my team had my direct line. Things were going smoother in terms of handling tech calls. People were lining up less, but management was not happy that the time goal was not being met. Then one day, my lead pulled me aside and confronted me with my telephony stats. My not ready times were 10 times everyone else's, to which I reminded them that I am the only technician. If 14 other people were lined up at my cubicle, then they are clogging the lines with people on hold waiting for me. Management did not care. I had a special skill, but I was not special enough to be exempt from the metric. No more not ready. I pretended my not ready button no longer existed and went about being a rank and file call center rep. The moment I was done with one call, I had to pick up the next. This meant during migration waves and outages, there were moments when my entire team was lined up at my desk waiting to transfer their callers to me. After about 10 to 15 minutes of just sitting by my cubicle's window, some began to confront me. I explained that I was forbidden from using not ready to keep my line open. The call queue would have to go down completely until my line was open to accept a transfer call. You could cut the tension with a knife. The time metric continued to tank and the call abandonment rates skyrocketed. Customers were unhappy. Management was unhappy. So management did the obvious thing and hired more technicians. Right? Of course not. The new protocol was to post a sticky note with the customer's callback number and a ticket number on my desk. Tell the customer to expect my callback, hang up, and then take the next call. From then on, I was explicitly only allowed to conduct the callbacks when fewer than 10 callers were on hold. Then they took 2 of the regular call center boomers and set them with me to Job's shadow. And then they tasked my lead with standing over my shoulder to observe my daily activities. What I showed the team lead was that for every 2 to 3 tickets I closed out, 10 more callback tickets would roll in. What he actually ended up doing was reprimanding me for having a high rollover not answered count. Because I'd let some calls roll over if they snuck in while I was doing morning callbacks. Abject dismay. The nightmare finally ended with a mortgage crisis. Management's brilliant ideas had crashed the business. I jumped ship to complete my college education, and then the company shut down about a year later. The last story is called Being Late. My manager wrote me up, and now I have a permanent mark on my record for being late twice, after a perfect attendance, while many other workers are late. One worker didn't show up or call, and was late a few times since. She never got a verbal warning or a warning on her record. My manager doesn't want me to be late? Okay, I'm no longer late. I'm now calling out for being sick. I applied for FMLA, which basically protects me from workplace discrimination based on a diagnosed disability I have. I can now call out, and it's legally protected, and I have sick pay to cover it. Mad at me for being 13 minutes late? Mad at me for being 13 minutes late? Okay, you can handle being understaffed instead. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.